Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Ulquiorra Cifer Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Kaken, we shouldn't be here. 4-year-old Izuku Midoriya said to his hot-headed playmate. Our mom said we weren't allowed to play here. Don't be such a baby, Deku. Katsuki Bakugo shot back, a big grin on his face. With my quirk, nothing can beat me. Izuku ran faster, catching up to his friend. They were currently playing heroes and villains with some of the other boys their age, and as it so happened the two of them were the villains. Giving the heroes time to make a plan, the two boys were looking for a villain hideout for their base to put their flag. Dagobah Beach was the perfect place in Katsuki's opinion. Even if his harpy of a mother told him not to, along with Aunt Inko saying it was full of dangerous things, Katsuki only saw a bunch of trash. Come on, Deku, Katsuki said, excitedly. I found the best spot. Katsuki's hiding place was a small abandoned portable tool shed. Its outer walls rusted from exposure to the elements, and the sliding doors unable to move anymore, leaving it partially open to the world. Izuku looked nervous as he hesitantly took a look inside. All manners of junk were scattered about. Broken objects littered the floor and aged photos hung from the jumbled up wall racks. I don't know, Kaken, Izuku mumbled. It looks dangerous in here. Katsuki rolled his eyes. That's why we're hiding here, dummy. We're the villains right now, so we need to look scary. Easy for you, Izuku mumbled. I don't even know what my quirk is. Katsuki sighed. They had been through this many times. Look, my mom told me that Auntie Inko is taking you to the doctor's this weekend. You'll know then. Izuku smiled a little. Yeah, you're right, Kaken. Then I'll be just as awesome as you. In your dreams. Katsuki laughed. If you're lucky, your quirk will be good enough to be my sidekick. Until then, you're just a Deku. The two boys, now with Izuku's mini-crisis taken care of, proceeded to look around the shed for a good hiding spot for their flag. Izuku walked around, looking through several hiding places until he saw something peeking out from under a blanket. Moving the blanket out of the way, he let a gasp. Kaken, a look at what I found, he said in an excited whisper. It'd better be a good hiding place for our flag, Deku. Katsuki growled, stomping over to his friend. I'm not losing just because you distracted me. Izuku smiled and pointed to his discovery. Look at these. Katsuki felt his jaw drop. Under the blankets, wrapped in an aged and decaying cloth, lay a katana. It had a dark green handle and a bone-white sheath. The guard had two curved extensions from its longer sides with a line going through both sides, giving it an eye-shaped look. What the heck, Deku? Katsuki whispered. This is awesome. As he reached for it, Izuku grabbed his arm. Wait, Kaken. Izuku looked scared. We shouldn't mess with this. Katsuki rolled his eyes. Don't worry, Deku, I'm just gonna look. Come on, when are we going to get a chance to see a real sword like this again? Izuku was hesitant, but he agreed with his friend. Even if he was scared, there was no harm in just looking, right? Okay, Kaken, let's just look. Katsuki grinned. That's more like it. Walking up to the green katana, he tried to pull the sword free. Ugh, I think it's stuck. Katsuki grunted. Hey Deku, come here and hold the thing so I can pull the sword out. Nervously, Izuku complied and wrapped both hands on the sheath, neither of the boys realizing how close Izuku's hands were to the top. With a grunt of effort from both the boys, Katsuki pulled the sword free. His feeling of satisfaction was cut short as Izuku let out a scream. Katsuki looked and his eyes went wide as Izuku was on the ground clutching his hand. Blood flowing from a cut along his right palm. Dropping the sword, he ran over to his friend. Damn it, Deku, I'm sorry. I didn't know that would happen, honest. Katsuki apologized while trying to help his friend stand. Don't worry. I'm going to help you get back home. Izuku couldn't hear him. He was in pain, his hand felt like it was on fire. Tears flowed freely from his eyes as Katsuki took an arm and draped it over his shoulder. As Katsuki moved as fast as he could, the other boys finally caught up to them. "Found you, Katsuki. Man, I thought you we dash. Out of the way, dummies," Katsuki yelled. The two boys made their way back to Izuku's apartment, where Katsuki saw his parents' car parked outside. With Izuku still in tears, Katsuki kicked on the door repeatedly. He yelled, not caring about the neighbors. "Auntie, open the door quick." Katsuki could hear his mom yelling something, but when she opened the door and saw her son had blood stained on his clothes and her best friend's son bleeding, she immediately scooped up Izuku and rushed inside. Once they started wrapping up Izuku's hand and calming down a hysterical Inko Midoriya, Mitsuki sat Katsuki down and demanded some answers. "And that's why I told you boys not to go there," Mitsuki yelled as she lightly thwopped her son upside the head. "You boys may think you're gonna be great heroes, but your stupid quirk makes you reckless." Katsuki didn't say anything as his father tried to calm his wife. He looked up as Inko walked back into the living room. "Is he gonna be okay, Auntie Inko?" The woman sighed as she sat down opposite of the Bakugo family. "He'll be fine. Once he has some rest and recovers, I'll give him a stern talking to." "I'm sorry, Auntie." Katsuki looked deflated. His mom yelled at him all the time, so he was used to it. Auntie Inko, on the other hand, was nothing but nice to him. She would even make extra cookies for Izuku's lunch just so he could share with him. "We're sorry too, Inko," Mitsuki apologized. "We know Katsuki can be hot-headed, but we hope you can forgive him." Inko shook her head. "It's not all his fault. Izuku should have known better. While I'm upset you boys made a dangerous choice, I am grateful Izuku has a friend like you to help him, Katsuki." Inko placed a hand on the young boy's messy hair. "You boys are going to be great heroes one day, but remember that even heroes have to listen to their parents." Katsuki gave a small nod as Mitsuki chuckled. "You're too forgiving, Inko." "I don't think so." Inko sat back down and looked at the door leading to her son's room. "He's still going to get some sort of punishment. I'm thinking no All Might video for a day or two." Izuku Midoriya was having a strange dream. Or was it even a dream? Last thing he remembered was his mom and Auntie Mitsuki bandaging his hand, then he fell asleep. Or so he thought. Now he was walking along a surface of water. At first he freaked out, not confident in his swimming abilities, only to realize he could walk on the water's surface as if it were concrete. Looking around, he saw nothing except a black sky and a bright moon that flooded the world with a comforting light. Nothing moved. No sound. Izuku looked around, nervous about why he was here. Finally, he made a sound. Hello." His small voice seemed to echo across the stillness of the world. After what seemed like an eternity, Izuku heard a voice come from behind him. "Who are you?" Before Izuku could turn around, he felt icy cold hand wrap around the back of his neck. Letting out a gasp and feeling more scared than ever, he froze. Unable to speak as he felt the fingers maintain their vice-like grip. "I'll ask again." The voice spoke in the same monotonous voice. "Who are you and how did you come here?" Out of panic, Izuku managed to squeak out a response. Izuku Midoriya, and I don't know where I am." Tearing up, he felt the fingers slowly release his neck. Dropping to his knees, young Izuku burst into tears as he realized he had never been so scarred in his life. "Stop that crying, boy," came the ever-cold response. "Why must you humans be so emotional? Especially the young ones?" Izuku turned to face the voice. Through his tears he could see a slender, yet fairly muscular, male figure of average height with a melancholic appearance. The figure had fairly short, messy black hair, pale white skin, a black upper lip, and green eyes with small slit-shaped pupils, similar to a cat's. Part of his bangs fell between his eyes, and he had distinctively thick eyebrows. A prominent facial feature were teal lines which descend from the lower part of his eyes. His facial expression looked as though he was frowning. The figure wore a white jacket, black sash, and a white hakama. His jacket had long coattails and a high collar. He looked Izuku with indifference. "So you're the one that got his blood onto my blade." Izuku didn't realize what the figure meant at first, but then the memories of the day's events rushed back to him. "I'm sorry." He bowed repeatedly. "I didn't mean to, I swear." I promise I wasn't going to steal your sword. It just looked really cool and dash. Stop that. The figure said sharply. It doesn't matter now anyways. I'm merely here to see what kind of person is going to be wielding my powers. I have to say I'm extremely dissatisfied. What? Izuku looked at him, wiping away his tears. Powers? Does this mean you're my quirk? The figure raised an eyebrow, seeing the boy's attitude shift completely. Seeing as the boy who was once crying run in circles excitedly caused the figure to let out a small sigh and grab the boy by his shoulder. Stop that, he commanded. Izuku sat down obediently. The figure was quiet for a moment then spoke up. I don't know what a quirk is, nor do I care. All that matters to me is how you use my powers. Now that your blood reactivated my blade, my essence has bound itself to your soul. Izuku's eyes widened, not understanding a word. Seeing his words go into one ear and out of the other, the figure just closed his eyes as if seeking patience and decided to try another time. Since I can tell you understand none of this, I'll let you go. But be warned, you will be back here again. One day I'll teach you everything. Izuku watched the figure start walking away and then realized something important. Wait! He shouted to the retreating back. Please! What's your name? The figure kept walking but looked over his shoulder once and spoke 2 words. Ulquiorra Cifer. Izuku woke up in a cold sweat. It had been years since he had that dream. Now at the age of 10 he started having frequent dreams of a eternally moonlit lake. He had mostly forgotten about that time. His doctor thought it was related to a form of post-traumatic stress. That and the stress of being was quirkless. Izuku and his mother were speechless when he delivered the news. Inko begged for the doctor to check again while Izuku stared dumbly into space, not processing the information just given to him. Please doctor, Inko sounded desperate. Can you check again? Izuku not having a quirk just seems impossible. Lately he's been doing things he normally couldn't. There have been times where it seems he's in his room but then all of a sudden he runs right into a wall in the dining room at high speeds. The doctor checked his charts. That is interesting. You see, in the cases of people being quirkless, the thing we found in common is this secondary toe joint. He held the X-ray up so the mother could see it. While it's not common, there have been cases where some people develop their quirks later in life. The doctor looked at the mother and son and gave a small smile. From what you've told me, it seems that young Izuku here will have a speed-related quirk and his body is trying to adjust to it. Unfortunately, I don't know when his quirk will develop fully. Inko nodded and as she and Izuku were about to leave the doctor spoke up again. I know I said that young Izuku's quirk would take time to develop. My recommendation is to try giving him plenty of exercise. Running, swimming, perhaps even a form of martial arts. Any of these could help. Thank you, doctor. Inko bowed and Izuku followed suit. As they left the office, Katsuki ran up to them, the Bakugo mother and son wanting to be the first to know about Izuku's quirk. Well, Katsuki said, too excited. What quirk did my sidekick get? Izuku's eyes started to water as he stared at the ground, unable to answer his friend. Hey, why were you crying? It can't be that bad, right? Katsuki looked concerned. Mitsuki looked at Inko as the Midoriya matriarch sighed and delivered the news. So far, it seems Izuku is quirkless. The Bakugo family was shocked. Katsuki was the first to recover. That's not true. I saw Deku go flying into a wall during playtime. He even jumped higher than most of the grown-ups during jump rope. Deku has to have a quirk. Mitsuki looked at Inko and then went over her words. What do you mean by, so far? Inko held onto her son's shoulders gently. The doctor said that it's possible that Izuku is a late bloomer and that his quirk takes some time to develop. So they're not sure when, but the doctor did give me some recommendations about how it may be possible to speed up the adjustment process. Mitsuki raised an eyebrow. And? What did they recommend? Plenty of physical exercise. Running, swimming, martial arts. That kind of activity. I guess that makes sense. Mitsuki murmured. I guess we'll never know unless you try. Inko looked worried as the 4 of them made their way to Mitsuki's car. I don't know, Mitsuki. Inko opened the door and made sure the boys buckled their seat belts. I mean, Izuku is only 4. Do you really think martial arts is necessary? Well, it's not like they're going to throw kids off the deep end right away. Plus, I think it'll give Izuku a boost in self-confidence. On top of that, it never hurts to know some self-defense. Maybe you should sign up too. Emi? I don't think so. Inko shook her head. Mitsuki grinned. Oh, come on. I think it'll be fun. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll sign up Katsuki as well. Huh? Came the reply from the back seat. Why do I gotta do it? Because you need some better Diespen in your life, kid. Mitsuki shouted back. Inko had spent the better part of a week debating with herself before relenting and signing up Izuku for self-defense classes. True to her word, Mitsuki signed up Katsuki 2 days later, much to the younger Bakugo's objections. However, 5 years later, the two had advanced quite a bit. They made friends, or in Katsuki's case rivals, with some of the other kids, including a nice girl named Itsuka Kendo. Kendo had beaten Bakugo on his first day when they sparred without quirks, and ever since then Katsuki's mission was to beat her and claim victory. He would pour his heart and soul into his training, and his passion inspired the other kids to push harder even if his attitude left much to be desired. The green-haired boy took a moment to calm his breathing before deciding to get a cooling glass of water to calm himself down. Izuku mentally hummed to himself as he made his way to the kitchen. The nights were out and Izuku could hear his mom's gentle breathing as he made his way past her room. Pouring himself a glass of water, he took a long drink. At 10 years old, he was in great shape. He had done everything the doctors said he should do. Even his mom joined in his running routine. So why hadn't his quirk developed yet? Izuku frowned. He tried to be patient. He really did, but after throwing himself into all of his training and having no quirk to show for it made him feel bitter. After a while, he decided to finish off his water and go back to bed. As he looked down into the glass, he let out a gasp and nearly dropped it. Reflecting off the surface were a pair of green eyes with small slit-shaped pupils. Izuku put the glass down and retired back to his bed. What was that? Izuku turned onto his side and felt sleep take over him. His last thoughts before drifting to sleep were about those melancholic eyes staring into his very soul. Izuku narrowed his eyes as his opponent charged at him with a straight punch. Shifting his body to the side, he used his right arm to snake around the offending limb and used his left hand to deliver a painful slam into the back of his opponent's head. Using the momentum of the blow, Izuku used his left leg to trip his opponent and bring him slamming down onto the floor of the dojo. Pinned and in pain, the boy frantically tapped on Izuku's thigh, letting him know of his surrender. Getting off the boy and extending a helping hand, Izuku grinned. Thanks for the spar, Murashi. You've really gotten better. The brown-haired boy known as Murashi laughed and winced a little. You don't need to make fun of me like that, Midoriya. Everyone our age knows that you, Bakugo, and Kendo are the top 3 kids at the dojo. Izuku nervously rubbed the back of his neck and blushed a little. That's flattering, but that's not true. Anyone can get better. That's why Sensei Marin is always pushing everyone to work harder. Murashi rolled his eyes. For someone smart, you're really dumb sometimes, Midoriya. What's that supposed to mean? Izuku tried to piece together his friend's words. I mean that haven't you noticed how much more Sensei pushes the 3 of you? Murashi gestured over to where Katsuki and Kendo were practice sparring on top of 2 wooden beams, their fists moving fast while desperately trying to maintain their balance. Sensei would never let us kids do that, Murashi continued. Not until we turned 16 at least. But that's, Izuku started to say, only to be cut off by Murashi's hand. Look, all of us kids know that Sensei lets you guys do that training because you 3 are the hardest working ones out of all of us. Murashi grinned. But don't think it'll be like that for long. We're coming for you guys. Izuku smiled in relief, knowing his friend wasn't truly angry with them. It was true that Sensei had pushed them really hard, but that was because they asked for it. Katsuki had begged to be taught more after losing to Kendo day 1. The explosion quirk user realized that day that even though his quirk was strong, if didn't he improve his own strength, he'd be SCK behind everyone. Once Sensei agreed, Izuku and Itsuka asked to be trained as well, not wanting to be left behind. Sensei Marin was excited to see the rivalry between her students drive each other forward. Izuku watched his two friends continue their spar until Katsuki managed to block one of Itsuka's palm strike and quickly counter with an elbow blow to her ribs. With snake-like speeds, Itsuka used her free hand to block and grab the elbow. Capitalizing on Katsuki's split second of unbalance, Itsuka's leg shot forward as she threw the boy off the beams and onto the mat below. "Ack, damn it!" Katsuki yelled after catching his breath, sweat running freely down his face. "I thought I got you with that last elbow. How the hell did you catch that?" Itsuka grinned widely as she gracefully jumped down, sweat running freely down her face as well. While she would never admit it out loud, her blonde-haired rival always made their matches close. She had just a slight advantage when it came to quirkless sparring, but she knew that Katsuki always took every other day to train his quirk. Explosions combined with his brutal onslaught of palm strikes, knee strikes, and elbow strikes would make him unstoppable. "You're fast, Katsuki," Kendo said, walking past him knowing he was too proud to accept an offer off the floor. "But you telegraph your elbow strikes too much. We've been sparring for 5 years now. I know you like to finish with decisive hits, so I moved to where I thought you'd be most likely to finish." Katsuki grumbled as he picked himself off the floor. 5 years and I've yet to beat you without using my quirk. One of these days, Kendo." Yes. Itsuka grinned as she picked up her water bottle from her gym bag and tossed Katsuki's bottle to him. Without even bothering to look, Katsuki caught it and took a grateful swig of the cold liquid. Seeing his friend stare off into space, he walked over and proceeded to deliver a swift chop to the top of his head. "Youch!" Izuku yelped and rubbed head. "You could have just said something, Kaken." Katsuki grinned. "Yeah, but that was more satisfying." Rolling his eyes, Izuku smiled at his friend. "So another loss to Itsuka, huh?" "Yup." Itsuka walked to them and returned the smile. "Looks like I get to be the champ for another few days." "Shut up," Katsuki barked. "Just wait, Kendo. I'll be back and show you just how much I've improved." Izuku grinned as he finished Katsuki's statement while Itsuka failed to hide a laugh behind her hands. "You really need to figure out a new line, Kaken." Katsuki narrowed his eyes at the laughing duo before joining in with a small chuckle of his own. "Fine, you got me there, Deku. Now what were you staring into space for?" "What do you mean?" Itsuka chimed in. "Recently it looks like you've barely gotten any sleep and Katsuki says you've been staring into space more and more." "Oh, sorry," Izuku said softly. "It's nothing really, just some weird dreams is all." "How weird?" Izuku started explaining his dream, from the moonlit heavens to the glass-like lake, and of the mysterious figure who inhabited it. Whoa, both Katsuki and Itsuka looked stunned. "So you're saying this thing could be your quirk?" Katsuki looked excited. "What would it even do?" Itsuka wondered. "I've never heard of anyone being able to talk to their quirk. Look, I don't know why I keep dreaming of this place." Izuku shook his head. "But for whatever reason I can't help it. I keep getting drawn into it." "Well, whatever the case, it seems like the doctor was right." Katsuki grinned. "I bet you're gonna get your quirk any day now." Izuku gave a nod, too excited for words. The three friends finished up class, and after they parted ways, Izuku finally made it back to his apartment he shared with his mother. His father had left them when he was younger. He barely even knew what the man looked like. However, his mother had stayed strong, continuing her work at the hospital while raising him. Mitsuki and Masaru Bakugo played a big part as well, taking care of Izuku on nights where Inko had to work late. They refused the many times Inko had tried to pay them, stating that Izuku's friendship with Katsuki was all the payment needed. As Izuku made his way inside, he smelled his favorite meal in the process of being cooked. Smiling, he took off his shoes and made his way into the kitchen. "I'm home," he announced happily. "It smells great, Mom." Inko smiled as she turned around to give her son a hug. "Welcome home, Izuku. How was school? Did you have fun at the dojo?" "Yeah, practice was fun, but school was boring." Izuku started pulling out his notebooks for his classes. "I managed to pass the last math test, so I'm glad I took a day off to study." "Well, I'm glad to see you're being smart about school," Inko nodded approvingly. Dinner was usually a quiet affair with Izuku asking his mom about work and talking about what Izuku and his friends got up to. Secretly, Inko was relieved that Izuku had made some good friends. While she knew better than most about her son's dream of having a quirk of his own, she was scared that society would label him quirkless right away and bully him for not fitting into the social norm. As it turned out, enrolling him into Sensei Marin's self-defense school did wonders for his confidence and gave him a second home. Also, having both Katsuki and Itsuka around to help him was a blessing Inko could not thank enough. A sudden shout broke Inko out of her thoughts. "Sorry, Izuku, I was just thinking." "About?" Inko reached across the table to ruffle her son's hair. "About you, silly. About how proud I am of the young man my son is becoming. You're doing well in school, maintaining good grades, you have good friends, and you are always trying your best no matter what you do. How could I not be proud of you?" Izuku blushed hearing his mother's confession. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't do it without your support." Inko shook her head. "You're my son. No matter what happens, you'll always have my support." He was back. Izuku had fallen asleep after taking a bath and finishing his homework. Not long after he closed his eyes, he felt a small pull, and once again, he saw himself standing on top of a still, moonlit lake. Turning around, he tried calling out, "Ulquiorra, are you there?" Not seeing anyone, Izuku tried to take a step forward, only to stumble upon something at his feet. Looking down, he saw something that wasn't there before. A katana. The very same one he was cut with years ago. When he last saw it, it looked old and worn. The bone-colored sheath was stained and the wrappings faded and fraying. Now, it looked like a proper weapon. Its clean sheath, the wrappings of vibrant emerald color. The guard had a small sheen to it. Picking it up, Izuku tried to pull the sword out, only to hear a voice speak behind him. "Don't. You're not ready to release that blade yet." Izuku spun around. There, standing only a meter or so away from him, was the mysterious being known as Ulquiorra. All these years had not changed a thing. Izuku gulped nervously. He bowed slightly to the figure standing before him. "It's nice to see you again, Ulquiorra." "Spare me the human customs." Ulquiorra waved a hand dismissively. "Do you know why you are back here? So you can teach me about your power?" Izuku answered nervously. "Correct." Ulquiorra motioned for Izuku to follow. Without looking back, he started walking along the water's surface. Izuku hurried to catch up and soon fell in step with the mysterious being. Ulquiorra began to speak. "To understand this power, you have to understand where this power comes from." Izuku jumped back in shock as from the depths of the lake a large monstrosity burst forth, disturbing the tranquility of the universe. As the monster screeched at Ulquiorra, the being simply waved his hand, and Izuku watched in surprise as the monstrosity was suddenly decapitated. "Ulquiorra, what was that?" "That was a being known as a hollow. A being of hunger and negativity. It sustains itself by consuming souls and others of its kind." Izuku felt sick. "I'd eat souls? How?" "By killing, obviously." Ulquiorra continued walking past the slowly disintegrating corpse of the hollow. Ulquiorra continued his tale as the two started walking again. When a hollow starts feeding on others of its kind, it becomes a Jillian. Most Jillians are just mad, mindless beasts. However, some of the stronger personalities of a hollow, and that starts triggering the evolution to an Ajucha. Once you become an Ajucha, there's no turning back. You either kill and feed to evolve, or you stop and remain an Ajucha forever. Those that evolve further become known as Avastolords. This is as far as some go. Their power is immense, easily able to rule over others. However, there is one more evolution beyond that of Avastolords. There's more. Izuku's head was swimming, barely catching on to what Ulquiorra was saying. "Yes," Ulquiorra said, not breaking his pace. Izuku could see they were approaching a structure of some kind in the distance. When Avastolords removes their mask, they become a being known as an Arrancar. Their physical appearances change and their powers become sealed in a blade known as a Zanpakuto. As it happened, my blade is the one you are currently carrying. "Wait!" Izuku yelped. "You said this blade is your power, and if your power comes from eating souls, does that mean you're eating my soul?" Ulquiorra raised one eyebrow. "No, I have not needed to eat a soul ever since my ascension to Vasto Lords. That blade you carry is like a bridge, connecting me to you, my powers being used with you as the channel. Oh. Izuku calmed down a little. So how do I use that power, and why don't you want me drawing the blade out? To draw one's blade is to bear one's will and resolve to the world. Ulquiorra stepped closer to Izuku. By bearing my blade it means you are willing to do whatever it takes to win, even if it means killing your opponent. Izuku's eyes widened. But a hero doesn't kill. Then you will die with a dull blade. Ulquiorra shrugged. Winning is not always killing, but the moment you succumb to despair your blade will crack and break, along with you and everyone you wish to protect. Izuku stared at the being before him. Steeling himself, he stood in front of Ulquiorra before dropping to his knees and bowing his head. Please, Ulquiorra, I want the strength to protect my and my friends. I'll prove to you that I'll be worthy to use your powers and prove to everyone that I can be a hero. Ulquiorra looked with interest at the bowing form before him. These heroic types. Always something to prove and someone to protect. Just like him. Get up, boy. Izuku wiped away his tears as he stood up. Ulquiorra held out his hand and a blade of crackling black and green energy appeared. Gripping the blade, Ulquiorra looked Izuku in the eyes. Green met green as Ulquiorra spoke again. Are you willing to go through my training, if it means commanding a power that can make your dreams a reality? Yes. Your training will be hell. I will break you down physically and mentally, and it will be up to you to put yourself back together. Even knowing that, will you have the resolve to see it through? Yes. Then prove it. Yes, sir. Any way that I can. Good. Now, stab yourself. Ulquiorra held out the blade of crackling energy, his eyes showing no emotion. Take this and stab yourself. Izuku stared dumbly at the lethal-looking object before him. Ulquiorra rolled his eyes and gestured with the blade again. I thought you were going to prove your resolve. Green eyes met green eyes as Izuku looked up at him. Of course I am. I just don't know how stabbing myself with an energy sword proves that. Ulquiorra just stared back. After a brief pause, he let out a sigh and explained his reasoning. Right now you're just a vessel that happens to have access to power. Like a sheath with a handle glued to it and no blade. It's just there for decoration. Remember when I said a blade is like a bridge? That it connects you to my powers? Izuku nodded. Yeah, you said that your powers were using me as a channel. Glad to see you can listen and memorize at least. Ulquiorra continued. By impaling yourself with this blade, you are fully connecting yourself to my abilities. Instead of the power being released randomly on its own, it'll be you who controls it. You'll have access to everything I had when I once walked the world. With training you may be even able to wield my techniques properly. What kind of powers? What techniques are you talking about? Izuku asked, his voice laced with awe and intrigue. For starters, I could move faster than the human I could see, my skin was hard enough to deflect several attacks without taking damage, I could use a destructive technique called a Zero, and I had access to a stronger variant of high-speed regeneration. The Arrancar listed off casually. Ulquiorra watched with a small feeling of satisfaction as the boy's eyes grew. By accepting this blade, all of that will be yours. I will even train you so you don't destroy yourself in the process. Really? Everything? Izuku could barely breathe. It seemed too much. Now, this is the last time I offer this chance to you. If you refuse, then I will reseed back into your soul, and that will be the end of it. You will never be able to come back to this space. Izuku took a deep breath and looked at the Arrancar. I accept it. Ulquiorra's mouth twitched for just barely a fraction of a second. I didn't expect anything less. Izuku grabbed the blade and he felt a surge of power travel up his arm. It felt like he had endless energy, he could even run around the world. This is awesome. Now that you've decided to accept the blade, it's time for the blade to accept you. What are you talking about? Once you stab yourself, your first trial will begin. All I can say is steel your resolve and survive. If you succumb to despair, you will be forced away from here, and there is nothing I can do to reconnect you to this space. Izuku gulped and took a deep breath. I'm ready. Turning the sword so the tip was hovering over his stomach, Izuku closed his eyes. In his mind he saw his friends, Aunt Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru, Kaken and Itsuka, and his mom. They were all smiling and giving him encouragement. With a deep breath, Izuku let out a shout and plunged the sword through his stomach. At first there was nothing. Not even pain. Then it started. Pain flooded through Izuku like a raging fire. The boy screamed as he almost fell to his knees. The pain was intense. Like it was ripping his muscles again and again, his mind shattering into millions of pieces and reforming in a split second only to shatter again. Among the pain came a flood of memories and emotions. Most of the emotions felt were loneliness and isolation. The memories zooming by became a blur, but Izuku could make out some of them. He saw a palace in a ghostly desert, a man in white with brown hair holding out an orb-like object, many battles to the death, and of a terrifying monster with horns and long flowing orange hair. Ulquiorra watched as tendrils of black and green energy rise up from the boy. Cracks appeared along his skin as energy seemed to be leaking out. He raised an eyebrow with interest as a pair of bat-like wings shot out of the boy's back. Izuku's body was in so much pain he felt like he was truly going to die. He felt his legs starting to give out, his lungs barely taking in any oxygen. His vision started to fade. "I've up." A voice sounded in his mind. Opening his eyes in shock, Izuku saw the faces of his friends and family, all smiling and cheering him on. Except for Kaken. He looked ready to explode. "Don't give up, Izuku!" They all shouted, their voices mingling into one. "This is why you pushed yourself so hard." It was for this moment. Closing his eyes, Izuku let out a small smile through his pain. "Thanks everyone. I won't let you down." Clenching his fists, Izuku shifted into a stance even as his muscles screamed in agony and braced himself for whatever came next. After what seemed like an eternity, the pain faded. The screaming in his ears stopped and Izuku nearly felt himself collapse but caught himself. Looking up at Ulquiorra, whose eyes had widened slightly in shock, he felt himself smile and declared weakly, "I'm still standing. Did I pass?" Closing his eyes, Ulquiorra nodded. "Wipe that smile off your face. You just barely met the minimum requirements to succeed." Turning away, he called back over his shoulder. "Now rest. Your real training begins tomorrow." With that, Izuku collapsed and felt the gentle arms of sleep carry him away. Next day. "Dude, Deku, you look like hell." Izuku could only let out a small grumble as he lifted his head off of his desk. Katsuki was grinning as he walked up to him. The explosion quirk user was in high spirits. Because today they were playing dodgeball. Katsuki knew that he and Izuku were the top dodgeball players, and the teachers made a rule that they couldn't be on the same teams anymore, much to the approval of their classmates. "Come on, Deku, it's time to get my revenge on you from last time." Katsuki had an evil grin on his face. He was surprised when his rival's head flopped back down on his desk. "Hey, what gives?" Katsuki demanded. "You're normally more pumped up about this." "Sorry, Kaken," a muffled voice came out. "I'm just exhausted. My body feels like someone ran over it multiple times with a truck." "Oh. Did you overdo it with a late-night workout?" "No. I'll tell you later." Deku turned his head so one eye was facing his friend. "It's a hell of a story." Before Katsuki could demand him to elaborate more, the teacher announced that it was time for gym class. Once they were changed, Katsuki and Izuku went over to their places as the team captains. Selecting their teams, the two groups made their way to the opposite ends of the gym. After confirming both teams were ready, the gym teacher blew his whistle to start the game. Unsurprisingly, Katsuki was the first one to get to the midline and proceeded to shift all of the dodgeballs to his teammates. Izuku fought back a yawn as he mentally and physically slapped himself, trying to focus. Seeing a ball fly towards him, he swiftly caught it and launched it back to the opponent. The ball shrieked through the air as it impacted with a surprisingly audible thud. The boy was floored as air escaped his lungs. Catching his breath, he proceeded to quickly make his way over to the sides. The game continued for a while until Izuku was the last one standing on his team, with 5 of Katsuki's team remaining. "Looks like this is my win, Deku." Katsuki crowed, his team lining up like a firing squad. Taking aim, they all released at once. What happened next nobody could really understand. In what sounded like small bursts of static, Izuku disappeared and the ball all came flying back and struck their previous senders. Izuku reappeared in the middle, wide-eyed and confused. Everyone just stared, including the teacher, until the silence was broken by Katsuki to let out a shout and proceeded to rush Izuku and putting him in a headlock. "You finally got your quirk," he cheered, giving his trapped friend a noogie. About them in time. His shouts broke everyone out of their shock as they all went to congratulate their classmate on unlocking his quirk. Later, Dr. Kanabe had seen many things in his time as a medical professional, especially since he obtained his quirk specialization and development license. This case, however, put him at a loss for words. When he suggested his plan for young Midoriya, he didn't really think much of the boy actually obtaining a quirk. Sure, there have been cases of late bloomers, but this was incredible. Young Midoriya could barely keep still in his excitement, while his mother looked even more pleased, if that was even possible. "So, it appears you have had some positive developments, young man." The doctor spoke happily. "What kind of quirk does he possess, ma'am?" Inko looked at her son. "I'm actually unsure myself. He woke up this morning and was saying his quirk finally spoke to him." Spoke to him? Dr. Kanabe's jaw opened slightly. Why you mean, spoke to him?" "Izuku dear," his mother said. "Maybe you should be the one explaining." There was a pause. Izuku? Honey. Izuku seemed to stare into space before snapping back to reality. "Sorry, Ulquiorra was telling me to let him speak, saying I would probably mess up the explanation." "Ulquiorra?" Both adults looked at the boy in confusion. "1 second, I just learned how to do this." Izuku closed his eyes and began to concentrate. After a brief pause, a form materialized right next to him. Ulquiorra looked around at his new surroundings. The doctor's jaw dropped to the floor as he took this in. Inko looked ready to faint. Mom, Dr. Kemp, this is Ulquiorra. My quirk." Ulquiorra said nothing as the adults regained their composure. "Amazing," Dr. Kanabe said, adjusting his glasses. "It's a sentient-type quirk. Truly a rare one indeed." Inko looked nervously at the new figure that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Ulquiorra?" Everyone looked at her. What do you do, exactly?" "Many things." Ulquiorra looked from doctor to mother. "I have many skills that I possess that I can pass on to and teach the boy. He is a channel of sorts. With proper training, he can do everything I was once able to do in life." "What kind of skills?" Dr. Kanabe was scribbling furiously. "In time, and with training, the boy will be able to use his rapier to walk on air, move at fast speeds, and possibly even regenerate from life-threatening wounds." Izuku noticed Ulquiorra left out a number of other things but kept quiet. "He should also be able to have enhanced strength as well." Ulquiorra finished. The doctor was floored. He had never heard of a quirk like this before. One that was sentient and granted additional abilities to its user? It was like every child's dream to have a phenomenal quirk. Now this boy showed up with a quirk that blew all others away. "What's rapier?" The doctor looked up from his notes at the unfamiliar term. Ulquiorra said nothing but placed his hand on top of Izuku's head. Suddenly the air felt heavy and thick, making it difficult for the doctor and Inko to breathe. After a second, the feeling vanished. "That's rapier. It's a manifestation of his power. Once trained, it can have many uses." "Who would be training him?" Inko asked, also shocked. "It sounds like he'd need more than one teacher." "I will, obviously." Ulquiorra looked as if that were the most obvious thing in the world. "They are my abilities, so who else could teach him?" "Oh, that makes sense." Inko blushed a bit. Even she realized it sounded like a foolish question. Izuku was grinning from ear to ear. "So what do you think, Mom?" Inko looked at Ulquiorra and back to her beaming son. Standing up, she bowed to the Arrancar. "Please train him well, Ulquiorra. My son wants to be a hero more than anything in this world, and I'm so happy that because of you he has that chance." Ulquiorra hid his shock behind a calm and unchanging demeanor. Being thanked this opening was something new to him. Inko looked at him with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. 1 year later. You want me to what? Izuku yelled in shock, standing alone the hospital's quirk training area. It was an open space monitored by several quirk specialists and doctors. It served as a space for people to safely practice control over their quirks. Izuku used this space to train and, needless to say, over the past year gained quite a following of doctors and scientists, all wanting to get a glimpse of such a unique quirk. Did I stutter? Ulquiorra stood in front with his arms crossed. I said coat your left eye and hand with erasure and pull out your left eye. Once you've removed your eye, crush it. Why? I told you yesterday that after learning how to control your sonido and pesquisa, I'd teach you a new technique. It's called Solita Vista. A technique that allowed me to replay events I've seen to others. It's highly useful for recon missions. Still, really? I'm just supposed to pull it out and crush it? Won't I go blind? Ulquiorra narrowed his eyes and thwacked Izuku upside the head. You forget you can regenerate your limbs even if they get cut off. An eye is nothing. It'll regenerate back once the technique has finished. Izuku groaned. Okay. Taking a series of deep breaths, he felt his erasure flow into his hand. Reaching up towards his face, he moved it closer and closer to his left eye. Fighting the natural reflex of closing his eyes as his fingers approached, he finally managed to touch his eyeball. Surprisingly, he felt nothing. Good. Ulquiorra nodded. Now don't hesitate and just pull that eye out. Trying his best not to judge, Izuku curled his fingers around the back of his eye. Giving it a tug, he heard a small popping noise as his eyeball became free of its socket. Several nurses screamed when they saw this and a few fainted. Izuku tried to look around, but Ulquiorra snapped at him. Ignore them. Now imagine what scene you want replayed that you've seen, and once you have a clear image, crush the eye. Izuku thought hard, and once he decided, he crushed the eyeball in his hand. Expecting it to feel squishy, he was surprised to feel it crack as if made from thin glass. Dust started to flow from the crushed eye and formed a screen. The doctors and researchers looked on with wonder at this new development. On the dust screen they saw 2 kids, both holding out a fist towards the screen. They could assume what they were seeing was from Izuku's point of view. We're all gonna be top heroes? The orange-haired girl declared excitedly. Yeah, but only one of us can be number 1. The blonde-haired boy challenged, with a wide grin on his face. Then may the best hero win, came Izuku's voice. The 3 of them proceeded to bump fists in the middle. Once the screen faded and the dust blew away, Izuku felt a sensation spread across his face. Looking into one of the mirrors, he saw that indeed his eye grew right back. High-speed regeneration truly was a handy thing to possess. It definitely made his mom happy. 2 years later, Izuku stared in shock as he stepped through that thing Ulquiorra called a garganta. Hell, his eyes were as wide as when his new technique literally tore a hole into reality. Now he was standing in a dead desert. Activating his pesquisa, he could sense many things moving about. You know, Ulquiorra, Izuku began, nervously. When I told my mom I was going on a training trip with you, I didn't think I'd be doing training in a different dimension. That's because now you're going to learn how to really fight like an Arrancar. Izuku's eyes widened. Over the 3 years since his training began, Ulquiorra had taught him 3 techniques: Sonido, Pesquisa, and Solita Vista. His time was spent training those 3 along with keeping up his martial arts training, which grew by leaps and bounds. With his Sonido he was easily the fastest, but combined with his Pesquisa, Izuku was almost untouchable. So what kind of fighting are we going to be doing here? Not here, but at a location known as the Minos Forest. Once we're there, I'll teach you. With a nod, Izuku activated his Sonido, leaving only a sound of bursting static and a small plume of dust as signs he was even there at all. 2 years later, as third-year students, it's time you started thinking seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives. The homeroom teacher droned on, looking at his students. I suppose I should pass out the career aptitude tests. The teacher looked at his students again and smiled. But why bother when I know you all want to go to the hero track? The teacher laughed and threw the papers in the air as the students cheered in agreement. In their excitement, the teacher could see all manners of quirks. One student grew their hair longer, another grew his fingers, another covered his hand in rocks, and much more. Wait. Was the kid yanking out his eyes really trying to be a hero? Yes, yes, settle down. The teacher exclaimed. You all have impressive quirks, but remember, no power usage in school. Hey teach. Don't lump me in with the rest of these extras. Katsuki called out smugly from his laid-back position in his chair, his feet on the desk. I'm the real deal, but these losers would be lucky if they even got me a sidekick for some D-rank. You think you're better than us, Bakugo? Some of the class shouted, some showing off their quirk, trying to intimidate him. Not that it would work. Katsuki snorted. I'll take you all on right now. With his glare, he shut them all up. Besides, the only other person at this school that may be able to keep up and make it as a pro is not even paying attention. He finished the last part of his statement by throwing his notebook at his target. Without looking up, Izuku caught it and threw it back at blinding speeds. Katsuki grinned as he ducked out of instinct, and the notebook lodged itself into the wall. The hell? The class thought in unison. Isn't that thing supposed to be made out of paper? Katsuki was laughing. See? You extras don't stand a chance. Izuku smiled. He had come far in 5 years. His training with Ulquiorra and Sensei Marin had caused his muscles to become lean and defined. He would alternate training between Hueco Mundo and the dojo. Training in Hueco Mundo was brutal. There the air was filled with erasure, so Izuku could use his powers more, but that also meant Ulquiorra could materialize longer and train him even harder. It also didn't help that due to his high power level, many hollows and ajuchas tried to eat him. It scared him to death at first, but soon he was able to fight back. The only thing that he didn't do was kill them, much to Ulquiorra's annoyance. Izuku argued that even if they came back stronger, he would keep training so he could beat them every time. His friendship with Katsuki and Itsuka remained as strong as ever, his rivals even begging Ulquiorra to let them train in Hueco Mundo as well. Since they had no training in erasure, Ulquiorra denied. After some more begging from the two and Izuku, Ulquiorra relented, stating that they would be given the chance of 1 week to learn the bare minimum, otherwise they were to leave him alone. It was hell for Itsuka and Katsuki. They were trained to the point where even Katsuki was feeling sick. That is until they saw the results finally coming to fruition. After a week of Ulquiorra's intensive training, they were able to absorb erasure and empower their attacks and defense. Now, after 2 years of training in Hueco Mundo and the world of the living, Katsuki and Itsuka were forces to be reckoned with. Katsuki found a way to coat his blasts with erasure, dealing more damage or being able to shape his blasts to suit his needs, whereas Itsuka focused on developing her erasure as a means to enhance her strength and defense. Well, I can't deny that Bakugo and Midoriya had test scores that blew everyone else out of the water. I have no doubt they'll get into UA High, the teacher said, causing many students to murmur. Well, I for one wish you both the best of luck. Now let's get back to business and turn to page 394. After school, Katsuki and Izuku walked side by side as they started heading home. The dojo was closed for a week while Sensei flew overseas to visit her family. So, Katsuki began. You think we'll be ready for UA's entrance exam? Well, it can't be worse than Ulquiorra's training, Izuku responded, causing the two to laugh. They continued on their way home for a while until they went through a tunnel. Sensing something off, the boys paused. You feel that? Izuku whispered. Katsuki nodded. His sensing abilities weren't as refined as Izuku's or Itsuka's, but he was still proficient enough with the ability to locate someone. Reaching out with their senses, the two boys looked down by the sewer grate. There it is. With the shout, the boys leapt back. Slime burst forth from below. Good senses, boys, the slime spoke in a garbled tone. Both of you look like perfect skin suits to hide in. Now be good kids and let me in. As if we'd fucking let you. Katsuki shouted, small explosions dancing across his palms. Kakin, wait. Izuku shouted. We're still not allowed to use our quirks. All we can do is try to dodge him long enough for someone to arrive. Oh, that's bullshit. Katsuki shouted as he used Sonido to skirt around the villain. Izuku followed suit to confuse the villain. He also managed to use his phone to dial the emergency number and hoped the police would arrive soon. "Why you pesky little shits?" the sludge villain screamed as he tried desperately to capture just one of the two boys currently blinking in and out of view. As he was getting desperate, a new voice sounded. "Good work evading his attacks, my boys. Everything is safe now because I am here." "Sanuvabich!" screeched the villain as he turned around to see a figure standing behind him, the manhole cover embedded into the ceiling. Forming a hand, he tried to shoot it towards the new figure. "I don't think so," shouted Izuku as he fired a bala and caused the sludge arm to burst. Desperately forming another, he tried attacking again, but Katsuki was ready. "Don't even try, a-hole." While the flames didn't do much, the concussive force of the blast busted the other arm as well. At this point, the new figure rushed in, his arm drawn back. "Thank you for the assistance, boys, but now you should leave it to the pros." The sludge villain's eyes widened as he heard the dreaded words. "Texas Smash." The fist flew forward and sent a vortex of wind towards the villain at high speeds. The boys watched in awe as the villain was literally blown away from them. In a flash, the new figure managed to use 2 empty plastic bottles to apprehend the villain. Satisfied, the new figure turned towards the stunned boys. "Thank you for the assistance, boys. I apologize that you got caught up in all of this. I usually pay more attention to keeping bystanders out of the way of my justicing, but as it turns out, this city's sewer system is really hard to navigate." He threw his head back in a heroic laugh. He turned and saw the boys continue to stare. "Though I have to say, you boys put on quite the show. While I can't condone you using your quirks without a license, I applaud your teamwork and the courage you showed." As he was about to leave, both of the boys found their voices at last. "Holy sheet, it's All Might. Wait, please sign my notebook." "Mine too." All Might laughed out loud as he signed each notebook. "It would be my pleasure, my boys. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have somewhere to be. Now watch how a hero makes his exit." All Might laughed as he launched himself away like a rocket, leaving the boys wide-eyed behind him. As he flew through the air, All Might gave a quick glance back at the two boys. "I should keep my eyes on those two. They showed enormous potential." Back with Izuku and Katsuki, the boys looked at each other dumbly before looking at their notebooks and seeing All Might's giant signature scrawled over 2 pages. "Did that just happen?" Katsuki yelled in excitement. Izuku said nothing as his head reeled, processing this new treasured family heirloom. Realizing that they had just fought off their first villain, the boys couldn't wait to become pro-heroes. As they reached Izuku's apartment, Katsuki turned to his friend/rival. "Listen, Deku, in 10 months we'll be going through UA's entrance exam. You and Kendo are no doubt going to pass, but there can be only one of us sitting at number 1. That's going to be my seat." Izuku grinned as Katsuki finished his challenge. "Just like you, Kaken. I'm not going to back away from that. I'll show you the power needed to be the top seat." The two of them bumped fists and made their way inside for dinner. Once they finished and helped Inko clean the dishes, Katsuki headed home and thanked Inko for the meal. As Izuku finished his bath, he saw his mom happily texting on her phone, humming to herself. Raising an eyebrow, he walked past to grab a drink. As he made his way past, he couldn't help but peek at her screen. She was chatting away with someone. Quietly, he snuck behind her and saw the name of the recipient. "Who's Toshinori Yagi?" "Eep." His mother leaped up in surprise. "Izuku. Don't sneak up on me like that." Izuku grinned innocently. "Sure. But who is he?" His mom refused to make eye contact. Just a friend I met a while ago." It seemed clear that his mom didn't want to say any more on the matter, so he decided not to push it. "For now, anyways." "Okay, well, I'm going to get some rest. The UA exams are coming up and I have to be ready." Inko nodded. "Right you are. I know you'll do great. You've really grown up." Izuku gave his mom a hug as he started to retreat into his room. "Izuku!" Inko called suddenly. "Yeah." Inko looked at him a little sheepishly. "I was worried at first, when Ulquiorra first appeared and described what all he could do. It just seemed so fantastic. After that first day of training, I was so scared. You lost your arm, for crying out loud." Izuku blushed. remembering how hysterical his mom and all the doctors were. After all, his quirk all of a sudden drew a sword and swiped off his left arm and bluntly ordered him to regenerate, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The Midoriya matriarch shook her head as if to push the memory away. She looked at her son again, this time beaming with pride. Now when I look at you, I don't see the shy little boy you used to be, who cried almost every day. I see a young man who stands alongside his friends and keeps smiling at the world, unafraid to throw himself in front of anyone who needs help. I'm proud of you, Izuku. Proud and scared. Mom. I know Ulquiorra and Sensei Marin trained you well. You're fully capable of handling yourself and you aren't afraid to put yourself in danger. As a mother, I'm torn between watching my pride and joy live his dream and be a hero, and worrying for my son who always puts the needs of others before himself. Inko had tears brimming in her eyes, but she stood her ground, smiling through her tears at her son who just stood there, shocked. Wiping away the tears, Inko took a deep breath. Look at me carrying on like that. She laughed. I'm sorry, Izuku, I didn't mean to pile all of that on you at once. The teen said no words as he made his way back to his mom and gave her a big hug. Thanks, Mom. I wouldn't have been able to make it this far without your help. His mom chuckled quietly. Well, remember those words when you get your first big paycheck as the #1 hero. I will, Mom. In his room, Izuku sat cross-legged on the floor. His katana lay across his lap in its sheath. Focusing his thoughts, he materialized in what he now understood was his inner world. As his feet gently touched the water, Ulquiorra appeared. It's happening soon. The hollow spoke. His voice showed no emotion, just like always. Izuku nodded. I have 10 months to train for this. I plan to take the top spot at the entrance exams. Katsuki and Itsuka are gunning for it too, so I can't afford to slack off. Ulquiorra kept his face neutral as he studied his wielder. Of course not. I wouldn't let you either way. I hope you didn't think you've mastered everything I've taught you. Izuku smirked. Of course not. I know better than anyone how hard of a taskmaster you are. Flattery gets you nowhere. Now rest. Tomorrow we begin training with our swords. But we've already been practicing with swords. Izuku was confused. With regular swords, yes. Ulquiorra's eyes seemed to glow brighter. But tomorrow I'm going to teach you how to use our swords. He pointed to the katana strapped to Izuku's hip. The boy gasped. You mean it? Ulquiorra never let him draw the blade. Instead they would use practice katanas. The Arrancar would instruct him via telepathy and through uses of Sanita Vista. So tomorrow you're going to use telepathy to show me how to practice with this real one for the test, right? Wrong. Tomorrow I'm going to show you how to materialize me so that we can actually spar. Izuku's eyes widened. But I already know how to materialize you. As nothing more than a sliver of erasure. Enough to give me a form and so I can communicate. This technique allows me access to my power in your world. It's a start for your real lesson. Real lesson? You've done well to survive this far. I can honestly say I'm pleasantly surprised, Ulquiorra said, his face showing an expectant lack of emotion. However, this technique I will be teaching you next requires a more personalized touch. Izuku's eyes widened. What kind of technique is it? One that will test your resolve to win. The boy swallowed nervously. Suddenly the blade in his hands felt several times heavier. 10 months later, Izuku felt an overwhelming sense of awe as he walked through the front gates of UA. The windows and gates shined in the sunlight, the grass cut clean and low, and the giant golden U shone proudly in the light. As other students began filing in, Izuku used his Pescuja to locate the specific people he was searching for. After locating them, he grinned as he saw them waiting a little ways ahead, Itsuka waving him down. Izuku, she said brightly. You finally made it. Katsuki rolled his eyes and faked annoyance. What's the point of setting up a meeting time if you're not even gonna show up for it? Izuku playfully punched his friend on the shoulder. Oh, shut up. You were just early so you could say that. Abe. Whatever. Now let's go pass this exam. Izuku declared, walking past them. He was so excited finally take the first step towards his dream that he tripped over his own feet. Or I'll just die, he thought, seeing the ground approach at high speeds. He closed his eyes, waiting for the impact. It never came. Opening his eyes, he saw the pavement inches away from his face, and something wrapped around his chest. Dude, are you really so excited you tripped on a flat surface? Turning around to look at his savior, he saw a fair-skinned girl with triangular, lazy-looking eyes. Her hair was dark purple and cut short. Her most prominent feature was the flexible-looking jacks dangling from her earlobes. One was currently extended and wrapped around his chest. Whoa, she's cute. The thought raced through Izuku's mind as she helped him back onto his feet. Thanks for that. Jiro, the girl said, sticking out her hand. Name's Kyoka Jiro. Returning the gesture, Izuku shook her hand. Izuku Midoriya. Thanks again, Jiro. Nodding, she proceeded to walk into the building. Katsuki gave him a chop to the head. You idiot. If you keep doing CRP like that and keep making us look like fools, I'm gonna pretend I don't know you. Whatever, Izuku muttered. It was an accident. Itsuka couldn't help but tease her friend. So even the most powerful kid I know needed to have someone save him from hurting his precious baby face. Izuku turned red. Come on, Itsuka, not you too. Yakendo. Katsuki shouted. The F, you mean, strongest person you know? I wasn't the one who tripped over his own legs. That's why I didn't say you, Bakugo. Itsuka teased, pulling down one eye and sticking her tongue out at him. Knowing it would set him off, she laughed as she raced into the building. That beach. Katsuki grinned evilly as tick marks appeared on his face. Come on, Deku. Get off your butt. Izuku smiled at Katsuki's rapidly moving figure. While Katsuki never admitted it, Izuku knew he was very fond and protective of their friend. Not that she needed extra protection, but Katsuki made sure no one was picking on her or teasing her behind her back. His nickname at the dojo was one neither he or Itsuka knew about. Kendo's guard dog was what all the other kids called him. Not to his face, of course. Inside you. So I saw your face turn red when that one chick with the crazy ear things saved your dumb butt. I didn't know punk rocker chick was what you were into. What would Aunt Inko think? Katsuki asked a few minutes into the presentation hosted by Present Mike. She just saved me from falling, man. Plus I don't really talk to girls that much. Kendo excluded, of course. Izuku shot back. Now shut up, I'm trying to listen. Present Mike was currently explaining each robot type and showing on the screen the shape and point value of each said robot. According to the screen, the bigger the bot, the more points earned. Izuku was already setting his sights on the larger targets, knowing they would be worth more points. Excuse me, sir, but I have a question. A voice broke Izuku out of his thoughts. Izuku could see a few rows ahead of him a boy standing ramrod straight with his hand rigidly in the air. Fire away, Examinee 7111. Present Mike shouted, pointing both fingers at said boy. This printout lists 4 types of villains, not 3. With all due respect, if this is an error on official UA material, it is shameful. The boy ranted. Whoa, someone better pull that stick out of his butt. Katsuki muttered to Izuku, who responded with a nod. We are exemplary students, and we expect the best from Japan's most notable school. A mistake such as this simply will not do. At this point the boy whipped around and pointed to Izuku and Katsuki. Additionally, you two have been muttering to each other this entire time. If you can't take this seriously, then leave and stop distracting those of us are here to pass. You wanna go, for eyes? 'Cause I'll to throw down. Katsuki began to rise from his seat, but Izuku managed to grab Katsuki by the back of his neck and enforced him to sit back down. Forcing Katsuki to bow his head, Izuku followed suit. Apologies for my over-eager friend here, Izuku said, chuckling nervously. He never got out much, so big crowds make him nervous. Makes him think he's gotta put on a tough guy act. Everyone let out a laugh as they turned their attention away from the duo. Katsuki just blankly looked at Izuku. I'm going to kill you, Deku, he said in a calm voice. I'm going to immolate your entire being. Over and over again until you can't regenerate anymore. Love you too, Kachin. And you're welcome. Alright, Alright, examinee 7111, your request was heard and acknowledged. Present Mike smiled. The fourth villain type is worth a whopping total of 0 points. It's an obstacle meant to be in your way and should be avoided at all costs. It's not unbeatable, but your main focus should be topping the charts. Thank you for your clarification, sir. Please continue. The boy sat back down. Later, in front of Battle Zone B. Izuku thought, looking around. I don't see Kaken or Itsuka. Or that earjack girl. Dimino well. Izuku had changed into his green and black training GI, with a symbol proudly displaying the character for turtle on its back and chest. He stood next to a girl with pale skin and short brown hair. She looked like she was extremely nervous, trying to do breathing exercises to calm her nerves. Maybe I should wish her good luck? He muttered to himself. He felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw the boy from earlier. He was in a blue and black suit that looked built for streamlined movement. Okay, so pretty safe to assume he has a speed quirk. Wonder how much speed and power he can produce. Izuku thought to himself. I hope you weren't planning on distracting that girl, he said sternly. She looks like she's trying to focus. She doesn't need someone like you ruining her chances. Izuku could hear others muttering about him, labeling him as a lucky charm for them. Annoyed with the boy's attitude, he narrowed his eyes and let just a small amount of energy pulse through the group. They immediately shut up as the air suddenly got heavy and a feeling of dread washed over them. Even the boy looked shocked as beads of sweat ran down his face. Not that it's any business of yours, Izuku started, speaking coldly. Unknowingly, he had picked up a few of Ulquiorra's mannerisms over the years. That girl looked extremely nervous, and my intention was to wish her luck in the exam and advise her not to worry, as hesitation tends to affect performance. Now, if you don't mind, I have an exam to pass. Turning around, Izuku walked calmly towards the crowd. They parted for him. As he took a deep breath, he clapped his hands together. This drew everyone's attention as he moved them apart to reveal his sword. As it formed, Izuku grabbed his tool and tied the sheath to his waist. It felt comforting having the now familiar weight resting there. He just pulled a sword from nowhere. Dude, did you see that? Is that even allowed? A frickin' sword from nowhere. I guess if that's his quirk, then it's allowed. Out of frickin' nowhere. As the gates opened, Izuku shot forward. Everyone looked as if he was crazy. Is he an idiot? No one even said it was time to start. The crowd was murmuring until Present Mike shouted from the watchtower. Hey, what are you all waiting for? There's no start signals in battle. Glad at least one listener knows how to take initiative. The crowd was stunned until they saw an explosion which broke them out of their thoughts. They all rushed, trying to earn their points. Izuku was a little bored. At first it was exciting, but seeing as these bots couldn't even compare to Jillian's, the excitement died rather fast. He used Sonido to move around the battlefield with contemptuous ease. With his enhanced strength and hardened skin, Izuku realized he didn't even need to draw his sword. He saw able to tear into the bots and rip them apart in a flash. Seeing a group of fellow examinees run away from a three-pointer, he used Sonido to move over and in a flash tear the bot apart. While the others looked back, they saw the one they initially wrote off demolish the three-pointer with no effort. The look on his face was one of boredom. Who the heck is this guy? Izuku said nothing as his form vanished in a burst of static. Reappearing on a rooftop, he flicked his fingers, sending two ballasts crashing into a two-pointer. Man, Ulquiorra, I'm starting to feel like I over-prepared for this. There's no such thing. The Arrancar answered, momentarily materializing next to him. Now focus. Something big is heading this way. Izuku looked and saw a giant metal robot make its way into the fake city. Letting out a whistle, he grinned. Now that's a robot. Don't lose focus. Ulquiorra reminded him as he retreated back into Izuku's inner world. He heard screams of people trying to get far away as they could. Izuku sent out a pulse using Pesquisa and sensed many people trapped or frozen with fear. Help, came a voice. Izuku saw the brown-haired girl from earlier. Someone help. My leg is stuck. Seeing no one move towards her, Izuku made his move. Using Sonido, he was able to gather all the people frozen with fear and move them to safety. Seeing the girl was the only one left, he flashed over to her just as the giant's fist was coming down. Sheet! Izuku cursed as he prepared his move. In his inner world the moon glowed brightly as the still surface of the lake began to churn. Ulquiorra narrowed his eyes. Looks like he's forgotten what I said already. I'll have to punish him later for that. Charging up power, everyone could see a bright green light appear, centered on the green-haired boy. When it was ready, Izuku moved his hand forward and yelled out, "Zero!" An enormous beam of emerald green energy shot forth from Izuku. The color washed over the battleground, sending brilliant emerald light across the sky. Once it was over and color returned to the world, everyone was left with their jaws hanging open. The giant mech was in pitiful condition, its top half completely obliterated. Izuku was exhausted, but he managed to swiftly break the concrete trapping the girl and held out his hand to help her up. "See, can you stand?" "Why yeah," the girl said dumbly, turning to look back at her savior. "Thank for the—" "Oh my god! Your arm!" the girl shrieked, seeing the damage caused. Izuku stared dumbly at where his right arm used to be. "Oh, guess I overdid it a little, huh?" "A little?" "Make way," a voice shouted. Izuku looked up to see a medical team headed by a shorter woman rush up to him. Before they could say anything, Izuku held up his remaining hand. "Excuse me, ma'am, but I think you should see the others first." "I'll be fine." Everyone just looked at him like he was from another planet. "Well, clearly you took more brain damage than I thought," the older woman replied. "Especially since you're now missing an entire limb." Before anything else could be said, everyone watched as an entire new arm suddenly grew back as if nothing had ever happened. Flexing his fingers and moving it around, he let out a nervous grin as he saw all the dumbstruck faces. Sorry. Regrowing the entire arm takes a bit longer." 1 week later, Izuku was ready. Putting on his new uniform, he made sure all of his bags were packed. Seeing his reflection in the mirror, he paused to take another look at himself. It seemed like a dream, but he knew better. He was finally a student at UA High. He had received his acceptance letter a few days ago along with Katsuki and Itsuka. The three friends decided to meet up and open their letters at the same time. Bursting with anticipation, the three friends ripped their letters open. Flashback. They couldn't believe their eyes as All Might appeared on a holographic screen to congratulate each student of passing. They were all excited to see their rankings as well. As it turned out, Izuku placed first overall with 57 villain points and 60 rescue points, putting him at a record placing 117 points total. Katsuki managed to gain 77 villain points and 25 rescue points. As it turned out, he also managed to take down the 0-pointer and unintentionally got rescue points for saving some of the other examinees. Itsuka grinned as she held up her ranking in the third slot with 75 villain points and 20 rescue points. "Then, how the hell did you get so many points, Izuku?" Itsuka asked. Izuku rubbed the back of his head and grinned sheepishly. "I guess I was on autopilot the whole time. Those bots were weaker than the Jillians Ulquiorra made us fight, so I wasn't really paying attention." Katsuki was listening to his friends speak. He was angry, not at them but at himself. Damn it. I wanted to show them that I was gonna be the best. Even after all my training. Is that all I can do? Kaken? Izuku tried calling out his friend's name. "Hey, are you okay?" Not getting a response, Itsuka decided to try. "Hey Bakugo. Are you listening? Hello." She waved her hands in front of his face. As she did that, Katsuki's hand caught hers and held them down. "Stop that, Kendo, I'm just upset is all." Both of his friends looked in confusion. "What do you mean?" Itsuka asked softly. "I mean about that DMN test." Katsuki looked up and met their gaze. "I wanted to show everyone that I was gonna be the best. That I could take the spot at number 1. But now my best friend is there and it turns out he was barely effing trying." Izuku looked guilty as his friend ranted. "I'm not mad at Deku. But," Katsuki grit his teeth before continuing. "But all that I'm feeling right now is frustration. At myself. All of my training. Every FING drop of blood and sweat so far has managed to get me to the number 2 spot. That's not good enough. Even after everything I've done to get stronger up to this point, I can sense Deku is leagues away from me." The two friends looked at Katsuki, unable to say anything. Izuku didn't have the words to say to his childhood friend. Itsuka on the other hand looked angry too. In a move surprising all three of them, she freed one hand from Katsuki's and delivered a strong smack to his face. Looking dumbstruck, Katsuki stared at Itsuka. The girl looked upset too. "Listen to yourself," she huffed angrily. "Moping and crying about being number 2. So what if Izuku's in first place?" The Bakugo I know would never spend even a second of his time doubting himself. The Bakugo I know would throw himself into his stupid training and focus on surpassing everyone in his way. In her next surprising move, she wrapped her arms around Katsuki and pulled him into a tight hug. The Bakugo I know would just be his annoying and arrogant self, saying he was going to be number 1 and no one was going to stop him from achieving his goals. She spoke firmly, still holding him close. "What the Kendo?" Katsuki muttered, slumping down and giving up to the girl's embrace. "Why do you gotta go and pull this cheap sheet on me?" "Because it's the only way I can calm you down, moron." Izuku looked at the two. "This feels awkward." Flashback, and as Izuku gave his mother a hug farewell, he made his way to the train station. Soon he was standing outside the gates of his dream school. "This is it, Ulquiorra," Izuku thought. "My new starting line. My first step to becoming a pro hero." The Arrancar didn't respond, but Izuku knew that he wouldn't. Ulquiorra didn't like saying unnecessary things. Walking through the halls was a dream come true for the now hero in training. As he was looking around, his pesquisa picked up a familiar signature. Grinning, he patiently waited until he felt the presence approaching him fast. Before the hand could tap his shoulder, he caught it by the wrist. "Looks like you're still too obvious, Itsuka," he said, turning around to see his orange-haired friend. "I felt your Ryatsu approaching ever since I entered the building." Itsuka rolled her eyes. "I'm sure you and Bakugo are the only people who could have done that." "You have a point. No one else here knows how to sense Ryatsu like us, but you shouldn't assume that we have the advantage. There's all manners of quirks here." Izuku lectured in a monotone, letting go of her wrist, unknowingly channeling his teacher. Itsuka laughed. She had long gotten used to her friend's peculiar mannerisms. Yeah, anyways, I'm a bit sad that you and Bakugo are in 1A while I'm in 1B. Wish we could have stayed together." "That's a bummer, but it's not like we won't have any interactions this year." "True. Anyways, we should get to our classes." As the two parted ways, Izuku finally made it to his classroom. "That's a huge door," he exclaimed. "It must be to accommodate all manners of quirks." Taking a deep breath, he opened the door, ready to begin. "Your feet off the table, you cretin. It's the first day and already you're defacing school property." Izuku recognized the boy with glasses from the exam as he was lecturing an amused-looking Katsuki Bakugo. "You can't actually be serious." Katsuki chuckled, not making an attempt to change his seating posture. "Did your old school shove a stick up your butt, or were you born with it?" Izuku's sweat dropped. "I forgot Kaken is actually horrible at social interaction." The boy in glasses looked at Katsuki before letting out a sigh. "Let's start over. I'm Tenya Ida from the Semi-Private Academy." "Semi, huh?" Katsuki sneered. "So you must be some sort of elitist who thinks he's better than everyone. I'm gonna have fun knocking you down a few pegs." Ida looked shocked. "You would threaten a classmate? Are you sure you're in the right place?" Izuku thought it was best to intervene now. "Sorry about my friend, he's really competitive. Please don't take anything he says to heart." Both of them turned to the new arrival. Ida was the first to respond. "Oh, you're the one from my exam site. My name is Tenya Ida from the Semi-Private Academy. Sorry I caught your introduction from earlier. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Pleasure to meet you." "Likewise." Ida looked at him with some intensity. "Midoriya, you realized there was something more to the exam, didn't you? You didn't hesitate to rush into the fray and save our fellow examinees from that 0-point robot. I must admit, as a student and as a hero, you're superior to me." "Whoa, this guy really took that to heart, huh?" Izuku looked around nervously, Ida's proclamation garnering the attention of their classmates. "Hey, you're that guy from the exam. Deku, right?" A bright voice sounded from behind him. Turning around, Izuku came face to face with the familiar brown-haired girl from his exam. Deku? Izuku blurted, confused. Well yeah, isn't that what the blonde-haired guy called you? I heard it as he was chasing a girl into the building. She looked confused as well. Oi, round face. Bakugo called from across the room. Deku is the nickname I gave him when we were kids. He was a late bloomer and by the time he got his quirk it just kinda stuck. But doesn't Deku mean useless? Ida asked. I think it sounds cute. The girl said happily. Plus it sounds like Dikairu, which could be read as, you can do it. If you like it you can call me Deku, Izuku nodded. I remember you as well. Nice to meet you under more normal circumstances. Same here. She looked excited. I'm Achiko Uraraka, by the way. Izuku Midoriya. I'm Tenya Ida, from the semi-private academy. Pleasure to meet you. Uraraka looked excited. So what do you guys think we're doing today besides orientation? What do you think our teachers are going to be like? I can't wait to meet everyone. Before the boys could say anything, a tired voice came from behind the girl. If you're here just to make friends, you can pack up your stuff now. The three turned around to see what looked like a giant lumpy yellow bag with a face staring back at them. Welcome to the hero course, the face said as it brought a juice bag up to its mouth and draining the contents in one go. What is that thing? The three students mentally shouted. The figure stood up and with a zip freed itself from the comfort of the sleeping bag. It took 8 seconds for you guys to shut up. That's not gonna work. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that. Whoa, this guy looks exhausted. Izuku thought to himself. Though if he's here he must be some sort of pro. Reaching out with his pesquisa he was shocked. Yup, that guy is definitely hiding his abilities. Be on guard, boy, Ulquiorra sounded in his mind. He's more dangerous than he looks. Right. Izuku muttered to himself. The figure turned to look at the rest of the students. I'm Shota Aizawa. Your teacher. Our teacher? Everyone thought at once. Ignoring the looks, Aizawa rummaged in his sleeping bag before pulling out a blue uniform. Now put these on and head outside. It's time for your quirk assessment test. What? The class looked at their teacher in shock. A quirk assessment test? The class was still in confusion as they made their way onto the training field. See their teacher waiting, they stood silently. Good, now that you're here we can begin. But what about orientation? Uraraka asked. Aizawa looked at them. If you really want to make the big leagues you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Here at UA we're not tethered to traditions. That means I get to run my class how I see fit. You've been taking standardized tests for most of your lives now, but you've never used your quirks for physical exams before. Seeing his students paying attention, he continued. The country is trying to pretend we're all created equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational. One day the Ministry of Education will learn. Now, Midoriya, you had the highest amount of points in the entrance exam, beating the old school record. What was your farthest throw with a softball in junior high? Izuku thought for a moment. About 423 meters. Everyone's jaw dropped. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. I meant without your quirk. I'm telling the truth, sir. Izuku gulped. He wasn't lying. Ulquiorra said he would be naturally physically stronger, but it surprised him how much. On top of the enhanced strength, Izuku had trained diligently as well. I can vouch for him, Katsuki said, causing everyone's eyes to focus on him. Deku's quirk is pretty DMN powerful and can do a lot of things. One of which is naturally enhanced physical strength. He can't shut it off because there's nothing to shut off. He's just that strong and he's been my rival at our dojo since we were kids. Interesting. Aizawa looked between the two. Not seeing any signs of the boys lying, he pointed to a painted circle on the ground. All right then, Midoriya. Use your quirk to launch this as far as you can. Anything goes as long as you stay in the circle. Izuku nodded as he held the ball. Standing in the circle, he debated what to do. After a few seconds, his face lit up as he got an idea. Shifting into a fighting stance, he tossed the ball straight into the air. As it went up, Izuku brought his right arm back and let Raisher flow into his fist. The moment the ball dropped and was in place, Izuku threw his fist forward and yelled, "Cometa Verde." As his fist hit the ball, Izuku let loose a large bala, sending the ball screaming away at breakneck speeds. The class was speechless except for Bakugo, who smirked knowingly. Aizawa looked stunned as he saw the numbers appear on his measuring device. Well, 1.4 kilometers is definitely setting the bar high. 1.4 kilometers? The class was floored. That's so manly. A red-haired boy shouted, pumping his fist. How the hell are we supposed to beat that? Another boy yelled, his blonde hair a mess. He's not human. A small boy with purple ball on his head screamed. Oh, shut up. Katsuki yelled, effectively silencing the class. After a few seconds of silence, Midoriya laughed nervously. So how was that, Mr. Aizawa? The teacher nodded. Color me impressed. Turning to the class, he held up the device so everyone could see the number flashing on the screen. All of you need to show your maximum capabilities. It's the most rational way to figure out your potential as a pro. The class clamored excitedly, getting over their shock. I want to go. That looks like fun. A pink-skinned girl said. This is what I'm talking about. A boy with odd-looking elbows claimed. Using our quirks as much as we want. As the class continued to speak, Aizawa cut them off. So this looks fun, huh? The students quickly became quiet as he spoke again. You have 3 years here to become a hero. You think it's going to be games and play time? His face shifted into a maniacal grin. Idiots. Today you'll engage in 8 physical tests to gauge your potential as heroes. Whoever is last has none and will be expelled immediately. The class looked at their teacher as if he were a madman. The first to recover from their shock was Uraraka. You can't just send us home. She said loudly. Even if it wasn't the first day, we just got here. How is that fair? Oh, and you think natural disasters are? Aizawa spoke in a hard tone. Or power-hungry villains. Or catastrophic events that wipe out whole cities. The world is full of unfairness. As a hero, your job is to combat that unfairness. If you want to be a pro, you're going to have to push yourself to the brink. For 3 years, we're going to throw one hardship after another at you. So go beyond. Plus ultra style. He grinned again, his finger raised in a come-at-me fashion. Show me that you deserve to be here. Seeing the conviction on their faces, Aizawa nodded. Now, let the games begin. First test, 50-meter dash. Izuku lined up next to Bakugo. So how's your Sonido training been going? His rival grinned. Don't think you're the only one who's been training hard, Deku. Ulquiorra may have helped you get stronger, but he's trained me as well. I may not have your abilities, but don't count me out here. As the two got into their start positions, the class looked on with anticipation. They were the top-ranked people from the exam, both of them shattering the previous record for points. At the start signal, both boys vanished from sight on what sounded like a burst of static, only to reappear at the end of the track. Izuku Midoriya, 0.18 seconds. A robotic voice beeped out. Katsuki Bakugo, 0.21 seconds. The same voice beeped. Aizawa smirked. These DMN kids. Second test, grip strength. Focus the rapier in my hand, don't got overboard. Izuku thought, channeling his rapier. The machine let out a beep and Izuku saw the machine reading 465 kilos across the screen. What the hell do you eat? The boy with weird elbows asked loudly. You, Sato, and Shoji have crazy high scores. He looked over at a taller boy with tentacle arms who was squeezing the device using 3 hands for an impressive score of 540 kilograms and another large boy with puffy lips squeezing for 517 kilos. Third test, standing long jump. This was pretty straightforward. Izuku jumped over the sand and landed clear on the other side. He could have used Sonido, but that seemed like overkill. Fourth test, repeated sidesteps. Izuku and Katsuki's forms were a blur as the two kept jumping across the line non-stop until Aizawa told them that was enough. The only other surprise for this test was the smaller boy with weird hair. He used the ball on his head to bounce himself across the line. Fifth test, ball throw. Since Izuku had already done the test, he was given a chance to sit this one out. He looked with interest, wondering how his classmates would approach this task. One of the girls was able to create a freaking cannon and fire the ball over 900 meters. Izuku congratulated her, excitedly praising her quirk's usefulness and versatility. She'd no doubt go pro with that. The girl blushed at the honest praise, trying her best to hide it. Bakugo managed to drop jaws as he blasted the softball away from the field. Izuku sensed he built up pressure in his palms and combined that with his explosions to get an impressive score of 1.2 kilometers. Uraraka was the most surprising though, as she threw her softball and it kept going until Aizawa decided that measuring it was pointless and she received the top score with infinity. Sixth test, sit-ups. This one was rather easy as Bakugo and Izuku did physical exercise every day. Finally Aizawa stopped them, saying it was obvious they weren't going to stop anytime soon. Seventh test, seated totesh. Due to their high levels of pain tolerance and strong muscles, Izuku and Bakugo managed to stretch pretty far. Of course, Sensei Marin made sure that both the boys were as fast and agile as they were strong. She ensured they were flexible enough that their opponents wouldn't exploit any weakness. Eighth test, long-distance run. Even with their amazing stamina, Izuku, Bakugo, Ida, and Todoroki weren't able to match Yaoyorozu, who managed to make a solar-powered scooter and eventually left the breathing boys in the dust. I know it's rich coming from Emi. Izuku gasped for air, looking at Momo's bike. But that power is really broken. After the tests, Aizawa looked impassively at his students, a majority of which looked exhausted. Well, congratulations on getting through all of the events. If you'll turn to look at the projection, you'll see your ranking. The class turned to see the results. First, Izuku Midoriya. Second, Katsuki Bakugo. Third, Momo Yaoyorozu. Fourth, Shoto Todoroki. Fifth, Tenya Ida. Sixth, Fumikage Tokoyami. Seventh, Mizo Shoji. Eighth, Masahiro Ojiro. Ninth, Eijiro Kirishima. 10th, Mina Ishido. 11th, Ochako Uraraka. 12th, Koji Koda. 13th, Rikido Sato. 14th, Tsuyu Ajui. 15th, Yuga Oyama. 16th, Hantasiro. 17th, Denki Kaminari. 18th, Kyokujiro. 19th, Toru Hagakure. 20th, Minoru Mineta. All eyes turned to Mineta as the small boy looked as though his soul had departed his body. Turning their eyes back to their teacher, he gave another crazy smile. Oh, the whole expulsion thing? It was just a logical deception to make you try your hardest. As everyone let out a groan, Momo spoke up. Of course it was a ruse. I thought it was obvious. Sorry, I should have said something. That would have been nice. The class groaned mentally. All right, now that the results are in, let's go ahead and get back to class, Aizawa yawned. The course curriculum handouts are on the first desk. Everyone make sure you get a copy. Man, that was a real trial. By fire today, Uraraka said as everyone was gathering their supplies to go home. While I don't agree with his deceptive methods, I'm rather conflicted in seeing how it could work to better us. Ida stated. I don't know, Izuku frowned. I heard some rumors at lunch today about how apparently Mr. Aizawa expelled his entire class last year right after the same test we took. Everyone looked at each other. Man, Kirishima laughed nervously. We got a pretty strict teacher this year, huh? Well, as long as we give it our all, Mr. Aizawa will have no reason to expel us. Izuku stated. You said it, the class cheered. As the group consisting of Izuku, Bakugo, Ochako, Ida, and Kirishima started walking out the doors, a voice sounded out. Hey, Izuku, Bakugo, wait up. The group turned around as an orange-haired girl approached them with some others in tow. Hey, it's Suka, Midoriya greeted. How did your first day go? It was great. Our homeroom teacher is the pro hero Vlad King. He seems strict but tons of fun. What's your teacher like? The students of 1A let out a groan. Midoriya chuckled and proceeded to explain the day's events. Whoa, that sounds rough. A girl with dark green hair spoke up. Itsuka remembered she had forgotten to introduce her classmates. Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce you guys. She motioned to the two girls who had accompanied her. The one on the left is Yui Asano and next to her is one of our recommendation students, Setsuna Tokage. Nice to meet you, Izuku gave a small bow. I'm Izuku Midoriya and this is my friend Ka. Katsuki Bakugo. Tokage finished with a smirk. Yaritsuka talked about you guys all day. We asked how she got so strong and she wouldn't stop talking about some blonde-haired kid who aged. Itsuka clasped her hands over Tokage's mouth, her face a little red. Oi, Kendo. Bakugo looked at his friend with an eyebrow raised. What kind of rumors are you spreading about me? Only good ones, Yui chimed in, much to Itsuka's despair. As the orange-haired girl looked around, she saw everyone had amused looks on their faces. Blushing more, she turned to Bakugo, who was sporting a trademark sheet-eating grin. Don't let it go to your head, Bakugo. She teased, knowing he'd take the bait at insulting his name. I was just saying how after all of your bluster you still came in second behind Izuku. Looks like you'll never beat me at this rate. To finish, she stuck out her tongue and ran ahead laughing as Bakugo's head veins started pulsing. Heh, you must really have a death wish, Kendo. His face twisted into an evil smile. You'd better hope for your sake you're faster. With that he chased after his laughing friend. Next day, afternoon classes? Man, I know we still have to do normal education, but I didn't realize how boring it would be, Kaminari whined. The class let out mumbles of agreement except for Ida. That's not an appropriate attitude to have when approaching your education, Kaminari. The bespectacled boy shouted, his arms moving in a robotic chopping motion. How could we call ourselves pros if we don't even have the basic education to function in society? Yo, chill Ida, Kirishima tried to calm him down. I'm pretty sure everyone here is just agreeing how after we got to use our quirks yesterday you gotta admit regular classes are a little plain. Be that as it may, there is no reason to slack off. Kirishima held up his hands. Okay. Point taken. I wonder who's going to be teaching our hero class today, Azui, or Tsu as she preferred to be called, piped up. Mr. Aizawa said that we would be alternating between him and another teacher. As the students began chattering, Izuku and Bakugo's heads snapped towards the door. Hey Deku, Bakugo muttered. You feel that? Izuku nodded. Are you kidding? No way I can miss a Ryatsu's signature that big. As the two friends exchanged a knowing grin, the classroom door was flung open. I am here. Coming through the door as a hero. The whole class cheered as the number one hero posed dramatically in the doorway, his cape fluttering in the non-existent wind. No way, it really is All Might. Kaminari couldn't believe it. He gives off such an impression. It's seriously amazing. Ojiro was shaking with excitement. This year is gonna be freaking awesome. Kirishima shouted, pumping his fist in the air. All Might stood proudly at the teacher's podium. All right, you zygotes, I hope you're prepared because today's training will pull no punches. He finished his declaration by pulling out a card that read, Battle Training. Live Combat. Bakugo grinned. Right off the bat. Izuku was excited. Now, it's one thing to remember, All Might flexed into another pose. One of the most important things for a hero is looking good. Behold. Clicking a button on a remote, sections of the wall slid out. In the sliders were several numbered cases. Inside the case with your seating number are the costumes you requested. Now get changed and meet at Gym Gamma. Gym Gamma? Izuku smiled as he put on the finishing touches of his costume. They were the exact design as Ulquiorra's, albeit a slightly different color scheme. The hakama was an emerald green with a white stripe going down the sides of each leg. Around his waist was a silver sash. His torso was covered in a comfortable black sleeveless top and an emerald jacket with long coattails and a high collar. Demon, Midoriya, Kirishima whistled. You look like some kinda new age samurai. Thanks, Izuku grinned. He could sense Ulquiorra's approval, though it's missing one final touch. There we go. The other boys watched speechless as Izuku summoned his katana. He tied it to his sash. Now it's complete. Why just pulled a sword from thin air? Jaws were dangling at the events that had just transpired. Bakugo grinned and rolled his eyes. UDMN copycat. As the boys made their way out of the changing room, Izuku saw Uraraka approach. Wow, Deku! Your costume looks so cool. Izuku blushed a bit. Thanks, Uraraka. Yours looks great as well. He looked over her costume, noticing how tight it looked, clearly emphasizing her curves. You're losing focus, boy, Ulquiorra chastised in his mind. Losing yourself to the opposite EC is something I'll never understand. I've seen it make people just like you lose all rationality. Oh, thanks. I told the support company that I wanted it to be like a space suit, but it turns out I got a tighter bodysuit than I was imagining. Uraraka blushed, rubbing the back of her head. Looking good, young heroes. All Might's voice sounded out, catching everyone's attention. Seeing all of you young heroes in your costumes is really getting me fired up. Now on to today's lesson, cooperative indoor combat. Sir, might we know why we're fighting inside? How do we pick our teams? Do we get to pick our opponents? How much can I damage the others? Doesn't my cape look magnifique? My quirk isn't super hearing. All Might shouted, silencing the barrage of questions. Seeing the class was waiting for him to continue, he pulled out a card. Wait, he's seriously reading from a cue card? The class sweat dropped. The purpose of this exercise is to accustom young heroes in training to fighting in an urban area while searching for a weapon of mass destruction. Students will be dived into teams of 2, 1 villain team and 1 hero team. All Might looked up to make sure the class was still focused. Seeing their eyes trained on him, he continued. Teams will be formed randomly. Rolls in. This exercise will also be assigned randomly. The villains win if they manage to successfully defend the WMD or capture the heroes via capture tape or by knockout. Heroes win by defeating the villains or capturing them via capture tape. As All Might finished reading, a hand shot in the air. Sir, what is the purpose of picking our teams randomly? Wouldn't it be more logical to pick someone whose quirk complements ours? Before All Might could answer, Bakugo let out a snort. Isn't it obvious, for eyes? All eyes turned to Bakugo. You don't get to pick when villains attack or where they do. If you're a responding hero, you also don't get to pick who you're fighting with. That's why random matchups are great. Izuku chimed in. The unpredictability will help us in the long run by improving our improvisational and reactionary thinking skills. Those boys said exactly what I was going to, All Might thought. He covered up his hesitation with a cough. Young Midoriya and young Bakugo are correct. All Might gave a thumbs up in approval. Now, on to the pairings. Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. Team B, Koji Koda and Hantashiro. Team C, Mina Ishido and Eijiro Kirishima. Team D, Ochako Uraraka and Tenya Ida. Team E, Kyukajiru and Mizo Shoji. Team F, Momo Yaoyorozu and Rikido Sato. Team G, Tsuyu Azui and Denki Kaminari. Team H, Shoto Todoroki and Minor Mineta. Team I, Masahiro Ojiro and Fumikage Tokoyami. Team J, Toru Hagakure and Yuga Oyama. Wait, Bakugo and Midoriya on the same team? Kaminari looked sick. The two top students in the physical and entrance exams. Mineta's soul seemed to be escaping again. Said team was grinning and gave each other a fist bump. Let's do this, Kaken. Been a while since we've actually been on the same team. Don't hold me back, Deku. After the teams had been assigned, All Might drew a ball each from the hero and villain box. All right, you zygotes. For the first match, our villains will be Team A. And the heroes to stop them, Team I. Villains, you have 10 minutes to hide your weapon of mass destruction. Heroes, you have the same amount of time to plan your strategy. Izuku watched as the blonde with the tail and the boy with a bird-shaped head wander away to plan. He made his way over to Bakugo. So, looks like we get to play the villains. You want to start getting into character now? Izuku finished with a smirk. Bakugo said nothing as his face twisted into an evil grin. 10 minutes later. Begin! All Might's voice shouted over the comms. Let's proceed with caution, Ojiro. Tokoyami said to his partner. We cannot underestimate these two. Right. Ojiro nodded. In the watch center, everyone was watching the two teams. Man, Ojiro and Tokoyami really got unlucky, didn't they? Kaminari sighed. I wouldn't know what to do against those two. Seriously, between Bakugo's explosions and Midoriya's freakishly huge power, there's no telling what they're capable of. If that wasn't enough, they've been training together since they were kids. Kirishima groaned. Not to mention how they performed during our physical exam. Seriously, with their speed, it seems like they have a cosmic cheat code for a quirk. Does anyone actually know what Deku's quirk actually is? Uraraka wondered aloud. I mean, he's shown that he's physically strong, can fire huge energy blasts, move really fast, and can even regrow his arms. Wait, what? The class looked shocked. That's too powerful. But hold on, Bakugo can move crazy fast too. Also, he managed to make a sword appear out of nowhere. So, does Midoriya have multiple quirks? That's too many for one person. All Might, do you know? All Might had been listening with interest. He had pulled young Midoriya's file after the practical exam. Under the registered quirk it read, Murcielago. I know the name of the quirk, All Might began. However, I'm at a loss of the nature of it myself. Young Midoriya will have to be the one to tell you. Speaking of Midoriya, looks like he and Bakugo are making their move as well. Eyes turned to the screen as the two villains were nowhere to be seen in the room. Wait, they're not gonna leave someone to guard it? Maybe they think they can beat Ojiro and Tokoyami before the two can get to the weapon room. Being kinda cocky, aren't they? Well, we'll see what happens. All Might focused on the two. Somehow I get the feeling that their actions aren't from them being cocky. It looks like those two truly believe there is no way past them. All of a sudden, everyone felt an immense pressure suddenly weighing down on them. It was hard to breathe. Many of the students dropped to their knees, sweat breaking out as a cold feeling washed over them like a raging tide. No words were spoken as wave after wave of the gut-wrenching feeling continued. All Might was still standing, but the hairs on the back of his neck were straight up in alarm. This feeling. It's so intense. I haven't felt something like this in years. Soon the feeling went away and the class slowly got back onto its feet. What was that? Momo looked at All Might. I've never felt that before in my life. All Might narrowed his eyes. Something I haven't felt in a while. Young Midoriya and young Bakugo sure like to keep us on our toes. Training building, a few minutes earlier. Looked like they finally entered. Bakugo casually said, walking towards the door. So you ready or what? Izuku opened his eyes and picked up the sword that was sitting across his lap. Tying it to his sash, he stood up and grinned. Yeah, let's win this. The two friends walked side by side in silence. Once they reached the third floor, they stopped. Come on out, Tails. Bakugo called. You too, Birdbrain. No point in hiding, we can sense you. Ojiro and Tokoyami looked shocked. Slowly exiting their hiding spots, they confronted the two. To think they could see through the darkness, Tokoyami muttered. Truly they are impressive foes. Looks like we're gonna have to play along with them, Ojiro said, dropping into his fighting stance. Agreed. Dark Shadow. A bird-shaped apparition appeared out of Tokoyami's chest. Izuku raised an eyebrow. So he's got a sentient-type quirk too. Kinda like you, Ulquiorra. Compare me to a bird-shaped shadow again and I'll crush your soul into splinters. Noted. Bakugo grinned evilly. Alright, since there's no other choice for you guys, it looks like we're gonna be throwing down. Izuku felt his friend's energy begin to spike as he raised his Ryatsu. Izuku sighed. I think it's gratuitous overkill at this point, but whatever. Izuku's eyes flashed green as he raised his Ryatsu as well. The effect was instantaneous. Both Ojiro and Tokoyami dropped to their knees, gasping for air. After a few seconds, the pressure eased up and they took deep lungfuls of air. Come on, Bakugo taunted. Where'd your fighting spirit go? You were so ready a few seconds ago. The heroes said nothing as they unsteadily got to their feet. Ojiro wiped some sweat his forehead and dropped into his fighting stance. I don't know what just happened, but I'm still going to try and give this my all. Bakugo's evil grin returned. That's it, Tails. Glad to see you can still face me. I'll settle this in your terms. Izuku looked around, noting the dimensions of the room. Bakugo, let's go with pinball formation. His explosive partner looked him and noticed the space around them as well. Grinning, he nodded. Tokoyami and Ojiro looked uneasy as they braced themselves. Tokoyami narrowed his eyes as his opponents seemed to shift into a ready stance. Deciding to disrupt any plans the two could be forming, he shouted, "Dark Shadow! Attack them!" With a gleeful yell, the bird-shaped quirk raced towards Midoriya only to come in contact with nothing. Just before Dark Shadow could make contact, Midoriya vanished with a bursting static sound, with Bakugo following suit instantly. Immediately the room was filled with the sound as the two villains were constantly moving faster than they could see in all directions, momentarily blinking back in sight before disappearing again. Control room! What the hell? Mineta shrieked. What's with these stupid broken powers? They're not human. The rest of the class could only nod and look at the screen. Battlefield. This is bad, Tokoyami. Ojiro muttered to his partner. They're gonna try and hit us from random angles. This is a reaction match now. Agreed, Tokoyami said with a nod. We might be playing into their hands by fighting back to back, but I believe Dark Shadow can help cover us. Sounds good. The two heroes stood ready back to back with Dark Shadow looming close, all of them tense as the bursts of static seemed to intensify. Suddenly a blinding flash of light dominated their vision. Screamed Dark Shadow as he felt his form burn. The other two brought their arms up on reflex only to be struck hard with what felt like a punch to their unguarded stomachs. With grunts of pain, the two dropped to their knees. What was that? Ojiro grunted. I have a guess, Tokoyami muttered as he heard the static noise stop. Looking around, his eyes widened as he saw Midoriya standing sideways comfortably on the walls. Looks like you're outmatched, heroes. Izuku called out. I suggest you surrender now. Unless you're gonna grow a pair and fight back. Bakugo's voice came from the ceiling. The two heroes gasped as they saw the explosive teen squatting upside down on the ceiling, smiling down at them with an evil-looking smirk. Ojiro looked at Tokoyami. They're right, you know. Midoriya and Bakugo have us at a huge disadvantage. You're right, Tokoyami agreed. However, it would leave a bad taste in my mouth if I just surrendered without giving this my all. Ojiro chuckled. Glad to know you feel the same. You ready for round 2? Of course. Let's not put on a bad showing for our classmates. Izuku and Katsuki looked at each other and nodded, with the green-haired readying his capture tape. Glad to hear you still got some spirit extras. Bakugo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Now show me what you can do with it. With that, the two villains disappeared again. Unfortunately for Ojiro and Tokoyami, they stood no chance against the onslaught of flashes and ballast before Bakugo launched the two of them into the air, where Izuku quickly restrained them with the capture tape. All Might, seeing this, shouted into the microphone. Villain team wins. Time to come back to the monitor room, boys. The medical robots will attend to young Ojiro and Tokoyami. As the medical bots approached Tokoyami, Izuku knelt down and helped pick him up to place him on the stretcher. After that, he made his way to the building's exit where Bakugo was waiting. Took you long enough. Bet you were drooling over a new quirk to analyze, huh? The explosion user teased, knowing his friend's obsession. Izuku rolled his eyes. It's not every day you meet someone with a quirk similar to yours. Dude, that bird shadow thing has nothing on Ulquiorra. Really, the only thing alike is that they talk. Well, either way, it was still interesting to see up close. The two heroes in training made it back to the monitor room. As they opened the door, they were immediately swarmed by their classmates. That was insane. I can't believe how fast you guys won. Bakugo! That fight was so dim and manly. There is such a thing as being overpowered, damn it. They're demon monsters. Bakugo felt his blood pressure rise. Shut up, what an extras. The class fell silent. All Might coughed and everyone turned to look at the pro hero. Well, that fight was certainly eye-opening for many, myself included. Now class, who was the MVP of this match? Yaoyorozu raised her hand. It would be both Midoriya and Bakugo. Their teamwork and knowledge of each other's skills made it possible for them to plan and easily overpower Ojiro and Tokoyami. Furthermore, knowing what the other was capable of, they surmised that by going on the offensive was the easiest path to victory. All Might felt his sweat dripping down his back. She said everything I was going to and more. She's good. Hiding his flustered silence with a cough, All Might gave a nod. Well said, young Wally. Now on to the next matchup. Team H versus Team J. As the groups made their way to their starting positions, All Might turned to Izuku and Bakugo and whispered to them. We need to talk later, boys. I'll get a note for you sometime soon. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. He added the last part as their eyes widened a bit. Turning his attention back to the screens, All Might continued with class. Izuku looked at his friend. What do you think that was about? Bakugo shrugged. Beats me. If I had to guess, it's because we scared Tails and Bird Brain with our Ryatsu. I knew that was overboard. Bite me, Bakugo snorted. We're training to be heroes. They're gonna have to face it at some point. Might as well have practice at school. Next day. The results from your practical exercise yesterday came in, Aizawa droned. Good work, all of you. However, keep in mind that you still have a long way to go. Use yesterday as a benchmark for where you are now. Yes, Mr. Aizawa, the class responded back. The pro hero narrowed his eyes. Now, let's get down to business. Our first task today will decide your future. Not another quirk test, the class mentally screamed. You all need to pick a class rep. That's a totally normal school task. Pick me, guys, I want to be class rep. Sure, I'll give it a go. Yeah, you're gonna need me to do it. Only one who has style and panache in droves, so naturally moi. I'm obviously the natural choice. YN extras. Silence, everyone. Ida's voice cut through all of the combined noise. The duty of the representative is to lead others. They need to have the trust of everyone, so our only natural course of action is to hold a vote. Everyone just stared at his arms standing straight in the air. Dude, you're so obvious. Decide however you want. Just let me know before the end of class. Aizawa zipped up his sleeping bag and quickly gulped down another juice pack. After a while the votes were in. Momo Yaoyorozu, 16 votes. Izuku Midoriya, 4 votes. Alright, Yaoyorozu and Midoriya are the new rep and vice rep. Congrats. Aizawa handed a small stack of papers to Yaoyorozu. One of your first duties is to pick class officers. I'll leave the decision to you. Once you've decided and filled out the forms, just bring it to my desk in the teacher's office. With that, the bell rang, signaling the start of lunch. As the students made their way to the cafeteria, Izuku felt a hand on his shoulder. Looking back, he saw Itsuka grinning. Hey Izuku, been a while. How are things in 1A? Not bad, Izuku returned the smile. We elected our rep and vice rep today. I somehow got elected the vice rep. Wow, congrats. Itsuka managed to find an open table and gratefully sat down. I'm the rep for class 1B and Yui Kodai is my vice rep. So if you're the vice, who's your rep? Izuku nodded his thanks to Ida, who had managed to get food for him while he went to get a table. Our rep is Momo Yaoyorozu. She's one of the recommended students, plus she's crazy smart. Conversation managed to blend together as Bakugo, Uraraka, Kirishima and Tokage joined them. Whoa, so the three of you all trained together? Yup, Itsuka lightly punched her friends on the arm. We've known each other for years, ever since elementary. Did you guys know that Kachin has never won a spar against her? You're lying. The students turned to look at Bakugo, who paused eating his plus ultra spicy ramen. What are you looking at, ya DMN extras? Kirishima raised an eyebrow at the question. Nothing, it's just kinda crazy hearing you getting beaten by someone. Midoriya, I can see, but no offense to Kendo, it's hard to believe after seeing you in training yesterday. Itsuka laughed. No offense taken. To clarify, Bakugo has never beaten me in quirkless sparring. I'd be hard-pressed if Bombforbrains here decided to use his quirk. Oh, Ida and Uraraka nodded in understanding. Kirishima's eyes were twinkling. D-men, now I'm pumped up. You should spar with me sometime, Kendo. Bakugo snorted. She'd kick your butt, shitty hair. Kendo's too D-men humble about her skills. Even if you used your quirk, she'd beat you 9 ways to Sunday without using hers. Looking up he saw everyone staring besides Izuku and Itsuka. What? Uraraka spoke up. You actually called her by name. Yeah, what about it? You never call anyone by name. Even Deku. That, 'cause Kendo earned her name, round face. Bakugo barked. Ida and Uraraka exchanged confused glances. Kirishima leaned forward. What's that supposed to mean? It means what I said, shitty hair. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. She's a top-class martial artist who can not only beat me but also trains alongside me. I've seen what she can do and I know how hard she works to stay ahead of me. She refuses to be an extra. You're never gonna find another person as driven as her. If that's not reason enough for her to have my respect, I don't know what is. And before you ask or say anything, Deku is what I've called him for as long as I can remember, so that basically is his name for me. Unbeknownst to Bakugo, his praises were making a certain orange-haired blush up a storm. This mainly went unnoticed by everyone except the dark green-haired girl who was quiet through the majority of lunch. Before she could say anything, a shrill blast filled the air. Warning! Level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. A Level 3 security breach? What is that? Izuku yelled as many students started shouting and scrambling towards the exit. It means something broke past the school's automatic defense system. An upperclassman yelled, running past them. The cafeteria was in chaos. The doors were being blocked by pushing students. Izuku could hear people yelling and screaming, some in pain as they were getting trampled. This is crazy. Izuku's mind raced. What could be strong enough to bust through the school's defenses? Making his way through the crowd towards the windows, he saw a large group of reporters that he remembered were stationed outside the school's entrance like flies. You gotta be kidding me. All this for a stupid interview? Looking around, he saw Yaoyorozu struggling in the crowd. Using his rapier, he ran through the air towards her. Yaoyorozu, I found out what the commotion is, Izuku said in a raised voice. Can you make me a megaphone? Raising her eyebrows, the class rep nodded. Once he had it in hand, he turned the volume to max setting and tossed it to his friend. Kaken, shut them up. Please. Grabbing the megaphone, Bakugo took a deep breath. Shuyuyuat. Settle down, you demon extras. Now listen to what Deku has to say, or else I'm gonna blast ya into next year. Seeing everyone turn and quiet down, the blonde turned to his friend. All yours, Deku. Everyone's sweat dropped at the sudden change. Clearing his throat, Izuku nodded. Thanks. Now everyone, the alarm was set off by the media. They somehow managed to get in looking for a scoop of All Might. The teachers are handling it as we speak. Now, let's all calm down and act like we attend one of the greatest hero schools in the world. In that mess, people trampled each other to save themselves. Some looked away guiltily. Others were helping the fallen students to their feet. Izuku continued. Seeing as the police are going to get involved, here's what's going to happen. Anyone injured will form a line with 1A's class rep. Yaoyorozu, can I ask you to help make some bandages and temporary splints in case of serious injury? We'll help those who got trampled with first aid before going to recovery girl. Yaoyorozu nodded. Of course. Thank you. Now I think it's best if we remain in the cafeteria for the time being. If the police are going to be involved, they'll want to confirm everyone's location at the time of alarm. So I ask everyone to return to your seats and have your student ID ready for inspection. Wait, why is a first year telling us what to do? An older student with bull horns grunted. Who put you in charge? Izuku looked at him. Seeing as no one else was going to provide any help, I just stepped up. But seeing as you regained your confidence now that there's no immediate threat, what do you suggest we do, senpai? Noticing the looks from everyone in the cafeteria, he sputtered an incoherent response as he made his way to his seat. Nizu looked with calculating eyes at the remains of their main gate. This does not bode well. I wonder, was this a declaration of war? The principal's small eyes narrowed. If so, then we need to make some drastic changes. Turning to his teachers that were standing behind him, Nizu started making his way to his office. Racerhead, Vlad, I need to speak to you. Please follow me.